in the interest of openness and transparency, and I think you just heard the oral cue there, that this meeting is being recorded, and that's being done so that the recording might be made available to those unable to join us tonight, and of course also to have a record of the proceedings. So let's get back to what we are up to this evening. Our focus will be on getting your thoughts and your ideas and your perspectives to help inform the update of the County of Brant's strategic plan. And this is a forward-looking exercise. It's about a richly imagined future, if you will, for the county that considers potential and possibility. And this is in support of a county-wide strategic plan. So this is not specific to any municipality or town or area on its own. And for our purposes this evening, we can think about the strategic plan as including a vision for the county. So that North Star, that bright shining North Star that speaks to what the county would like to be and would like to achieve. And then, of course, it'll also include, the strategic plan will include key directions or priority areas of focus in support of achieving the vision. And of course, we'll need some actions and initiatives to help realize that success. And tonight, we'll be inviting you to share your answers to a series of questions that can help shape the content and the focus of the strategic plan, which will cover the next 4 years and beyond. Now, just to be clear, though we need to be thinking about gaps and concerns and issues and things that are perhaps less than ideal in the county, this meeting is not about any and everything that bugs you about the county or that may have happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Again, this is very much about a respectful exploration of a desired future for the county and how we might make that happen. And in fact, the county, of course, looks forward to a very constructive dialogue in terms of getting your value-adding comments and answers to a variety of questions. So more specifically, let's briefly talk about what we're up to this evening. And our objectives are reflected in the session agenda, which is on screen right now. We'll begin in a moment with a welcome and a few context-setting remarks from Mayor David Bailey. Following that, we'll have an overview presentation by the County of Brant's interim CAO, that is Chief Administrative Officer Daryl Lee, that will cover a number of topics, including the purpose of the strategic plan, its importance to the county, the current strategic plan and the process for updating it, the important role of public engagement, the approval processes, the timelines, next steps, and so forth. So we'll hear about all of that shortly. Following the presentation, as I mentioned, we will be opening things up to get your answers to a variety of questions that the team will be posing, and or any questions or comments that you might want to share, and more about how we'll do all of that a little bit later. And then we'll conclude with any observations from county staff, and we'll have a quick recap of next steps, followed by a formal closing and adjournment. And we're looking to wrap things up by no later than 7:30, and we might finish a little bit before then. We'll see how things are going. Please note that for tonight, we are not addressing individual site or property specific questions. Those are best addressed through other means and through other forms. So please remember that tonight is about the strategic plan. It is not about the official plan or the transportation master plan or any of those other good plans that the county's working on. This is about the overall strategic plan for the county as a whole. So a couple of process-related items. I already mentioned that the meeting's recorded. We will occasionally be making use of some electronic polling questions. to which you are invited to respond if you have a web-enabled device. And I believe that is the case. I'm just scanning here. Yes, it looks like everybody is on a web-enabled device tonight, which is terrific. You will not be able to participate if you're using a simple telephone, a non-web-enabled telephone, but it looks like that is not the case for us this evening, which is terrific. And again, we'll be looking to get comments from participants later in the session, and depending on the number of people who are interested in sharing their thoughts, we'll try to share some of them this evening. If we don't share yours, please be assured that the team will be reviewing any and all comments and information received. And again, there are various avenues for you to share your valued thoughts. So if things occur to you after the meeting, as is often the case, please feel free to go to the website, to Engage Brant and so forth. There's a survey you can fill out. There are all kinds of ways you can provide your perspective, and we would welcome you doing so. Now, this last point, I don't know if I need to say it. I think the good people of the County of Brant share this next sentiment, but I will note that council staff feel very strongly about the importance of civility and respectful dialogue and so forth. And to that end, of course, there'll be no tolerance for profanity or inappropriate language. Again, not that I would have expected that there would be any this evening. And by the way, I understand that we have a number of our esteemed elected officials and various county staff who are observing the session. We are very pleased to have you join us. I know that you will be keen listeners to what's going on tonight, and welcome to all. And again, thank you for your interest in the initiative. I'll say a little more about the nature of this Zoom webinar and how you can participate in the session when we look to get your questions and comments. I'll take a moment now just to quickly introduce 3 county staff members that you may be hearing from this evening. One for sure you're going to hear from, but possibly 2 others, either as presenters of information or as responders to questions and comments. And I'll just introduce them briefly. I'll ask them to just make sure their cameras are on and to quickly unmute and maybe just say a 3-second hello and give you all a wave so that you can put a face to the name. First of all, we have, and you'll be hearing more from Daryl in a moment, but we have Daryl Lee, who is again the interim chief administrative officer. Daryl, did you want to say a quick hello?
Yes, thanks very much, Glenn. Just good evening, everyone. I'm glad everyone could join us for what is a really important step in the development of our strategic plan.
Great, thank you. And we have Adam Crozier, who's the project manager in the office of the CAO. Adam?
Yeah, hi everyone. Again, really appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy schedule tonight to join us. And we look forward to hearing anything you have to say tonight and anything you have to say in our survey or come to our drop-in open house on March the 6th.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, we have Melissa Connor, who's the Director of Communications. Melissa, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to warm welcome everybody. Really excited that you're joining us tonight. We're really looking forward to hearing from you.
And again, for those of you who joined us in progress, and I know that's a few of you, my name is Glenn, and I am serving as the independent facilitator for the meeting. And of course, we have all of you without whom, that is all of you as members of the public, without whom this meeting wouldn't make much sense. So thank you again for joining us. In the interest of time, let me hand things to Mayor Bailey to again share some words of introduction and welcome. I'll then pop back in to introduce this next segment where we'll be hearing from Daryl Lee, who will share some additional context. But first, over to you, Mayor Bailey.
Well, thank you, Glenn, and thank you to everyone who's taken the time to participate tonight. Yesterday, we had a good turnout for the actual event, and I bring greetings on behalf of the council. Yesterday, I was very excited to see so many council members at a session. I'm not sure who's on tonight. I'm sure there's a number of elected councillors on the meeting tonight. I thank you for taking your time. It was very exciting yesterday to hear everyone's thoughts and see the enthusiasm for the future of the County of Brant. it's a very hot product to be selling right now, and it's very good to get all of your opinions and to hear what you're thinking and what you're hoping for. So thank you all for participating tonight, and Glenn, I'll leave it to you to make it the best session it can be. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor Bailey. Always great to see you. So let's move to our next agenda item. And as noted, we'll be sharing the overview presentation covering the topics I mentioned earlier, but we'll also be pausing occasionally to ask some polling questions. And in fact, let's do the first one right now. Again, you'll need a web-enabled device to participate, but I encourage you to do so. I'll take us through the questions and then we'll share the responses afterward. So if you would take a moment to have a look at the slide, and if you don't know which ward you're located in, take a moment to kind of match that up using the color codes there. You know, the light blue is Ward 1 and so forth. So if you'd have a look at that for a moment, and then we'll put the question on screen, and we'll get a sense of sort of which wards, you know, who's from which wards tonight. That would be quite a helpful and useful thing to do. So I'll ask our technical manager to put the question up now. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to identify their ward. If we could put it up, terrific. And I'll give you a little bit of time. If you'd kindly put in your responses, that would be great. Thank you. I see a number of you are already doing so. Terrific. I'll give you a little more time. Maybe another 10, 15 seconds or so in case you're still trying to locate yourself on the ward map. Okay, another 5 seconds or so, everybody. Thank you. Okay, I'll ask our technical manager to bring the poll to a close, and let's just look at the results. So we've got folks from every ward except it looks like Ward 3. And it looks like we've got the largest representation from wards 2 and 5 with just under 4 and 10 at 38%. So thank you again for doing that. We're not a large group tonight, or at least at the moment. Hopefully others will be able to join us in progress, but that gives us a sense of who we have in the virtual meeting. So thank you for doing that. And if you're not aware, you may have to click the little red circle at the top of the poll just to close it so you can go back to seeing the slides. So I'll give you a moment to do that now. And while you were doing that, let's move on to the next part of the agenda. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be opening things up to your comments, questions, and answers to the team's questions at the conclusion of the presentation. However, I will note right now that you can use the written Q&A function to send any questions of fact or clarification that you might have at any time during the presentation that Daryl's about to take us through. And in fact, do please send them as they occur to you. And to do that, if you're not familiar with Zoom, I'll go over this quickly for you. You need to open the Q&A window by clicking on that icon. And that's typically found, depending on your device and how you've accessed the meeting, it's typically found at the bottom of your screen. You may have to move your cursor or hover your cursor over the bottom of the screen to be able to see it, but you should see a little Q&A icon. Click on it to open that box. Then what you would do if you have a question is simply type your question into the Q&A dialog box. And please remember to click send to make sure that it makes its way through to us. Your question may be shared out loud by me or a member of the team, so I'll just give you that heads up. But do keep in mind that any questions or comments or answers to the team's questions that you'll be sharing later, if they're not shared this evening or addressed live during the meeting, again, I want to reiterate that staff will be looking at all of that very seriously, and all of that will be taken into account. So that's available to you if you want to send questions at any time during the presentation. So let's get to the overview presentation now, and I'll invite Daryl Lee from the county, again, the interim Chief Administrative Officer, to take us through the material. Daryl, please go ahead.
Great. Thanks very much, Glenn. And again, Glenn, thanks again for helping us out tonight with this session. It's greatly appreciated. To everyone joining us, members of the public, council members, as contributors and attendees tonight, that's greatly appreciated as we work towards the development of a new comprehensive plan for the next term of council. When we think of strategic planning, I guess the question that comes to mind is why a strategic plan? And a strategic plan really helps this council to identify clear directions and articulate a vision and values for the County of Brant, and at least a specific actions that the council want to complete over its next term, which ends in 2026. And when we think of a strategic plan, I think of it as a clear blueprint or framework that guides every decision that this council will make over this term. And it also trickles down to as key staff in the organization as well, because every time staff bring forward an initiative or a recommendation, we need to ensure that it aligns with this vision, the strategic plan. So going forward, this is really a foundational document for us. It really guides all the work we will do. And so a very, very key and important document moving forward. So currently, the current strategic plan for the County of Brant was developed back at the outset of the previous term of council, Our Future Brant 2019 to 2023, and it outlines 4 specific strategic goals for the county. It included a community vision, 6 strategic priorities, a number of associated goals and objectives, and it had 33 prescribed or specific actions within the plan. And certainly the COVID-19 pandemic did interrupt kind of the execution of that plan to some degree, but by and large, the majority of the objectives and actions in that plan have been completed. And county staff are very, very proud of that, working closely with members of the elected council. But having said that, it's really now time with a new term of council to build on that foundational document, to refresh and revise that strategic plan. So that 2019 to 2023 plan becomes our foundation in terms of refreshing and making sure it is really, it really respects the kind of the goals, objectives, the needs of the communities we serve. So just to talk a little bit about our process, and Glenn's did a very nice job about articulating the various kind of component pieces to the development of our updated strategic plan. But we've outlined, council's adopted very early in this term, a really comprehensive and robust process for updating our existing strategic plan. And the main focus of any strategic plan should be, as is this one certainly is public engagement. And that's why your input, everyone's input tonight, is so critical to this process. And in addition to this meeting, we've had an open house already, one that was held earlier this week. We have another one, as Glenn outlined, that's scheduled for March the 6th. There are survey documents available that members of the public can complete. And I understand there's been very good engagement and take up on that opportunity. And again, surveys that were mailed out to residents as well. So this, public input will really shape the focus of the strategic plan. So that the entire process is built around the foundation of public engagement and input we can gather and themes that we can distill from that, the comments received. So once we complete that public engagement process and we work towards the completion of a new updated strategic plan for the community, council will carefully consider all the public comments, all the comments received through all of our engagement opportunities, because that will really inform the development of the updated or refreshed strategic plan for the community. And then once we gather that information, or once we have those findings, it's really council's turn. They get a chance to consider that input, kind of distill that down, provide their own input into the themes that will shape the next strategic plan. And it's really hoped that once the public input phase is completed, council's had a chance to consider and provide their own input, that we'll be working towards the development of a new document to share with the public in the early spring of 2023. And we're fairly early in a new term of council, and I know Mayor Bailey and council are eager to get this completed and get this moving forward in terms of starting to match those objectives with kind of the outcomes of council. So we're well on track in terms of the plan that was outlined to council, the timelines that were established, and we hope to deliver a revised, kind of refreshed document in the spring of 2023. And with that, Glenn, I will hand it back to you kind of to move into our next phase.
Great. Thank you very much, Daryl, for the informative presentation. I know you've kept it very brief because we wanted to maximize the time available for people to share their perspective this evening. And thank you again to everyone for participating tonight in the session, both for your interest in the topic. And I know some of you have already sent in questions. We have some staff from the county who are monitoring the Q&A, and some of those will be forwarded to me. And again, I'll look to pose at least some of them this evening. Before we go any further, though, let's do our second poll question. And we're only going to be doing 4 in total tonight, and this is our second of the 4. But if we could put that up on screen now, I'll ask our technical manager to do that. Again, we invite your responses. I think that that's poll question 3, technical manager. If you could take that one down, actually. There's a poll question 2 that should be here. So if we could close, sorry, everybody, we jumped ahead to question 3. There is a poll question 2. There it is. It's up now. So we'll give you an opportunity to have a look at that one. So what 2 statements are the most important to you? And you can see there's a variety of them listed there, 4 or 5. If you would select up to 2 of them, please. Again, if you'd kindly limit yourself to 2, that would be much appreciated. I'll give you a moment to read through them and do that. Okay, many of you have already answered. We'll give you a little more time. And somebody was asking through the Q&A, what the number of participants are tonight, what the interest is in this kind of session. We're not a huge group tonight. We're roughly around 20 in total. Again, hopefully more will join us as the evening progresses. But we recognize, people have other things that they are interested in doing. Okay, why don't we draw this one to a close and we'll share the results with you. So we've got about 2/3 of you, 67%, saying protecting green space, farmland, and water is, of the 2, it's one of the most important things from your perspective. Just over half of you, 56%, put ensuring Burford, Paris, and St. George downtown cores are thriving and vibrant in your top 2s. And then we've got about 44% who are saying bringing new businesses to Brant. About 1 in 5 of you saying ensuring the County of Brant implements best practices around environmental sustainability and energy management. And about 1 in 10 of you have identified more affordable and attainable housing options as being in your top 2. So thank you for that. Again, we recognize this is not a statistically reliable survey. There's a small number of people. It's just giving a snapshot of what some of you are thinking who have joined us this evening. And again, if you've joined us in progress, to close the poll screen, you just have to click on the red dot at the top of it, and then it will go back to the slides themselves. So thank you again for participating in that. So we've had the presentation. It's time now to share some of the things that you want to share. And I'll begin with some of the questions in just a moment. But before I do that, I wanted to let you know that the county has a number of questions to which they would like to get your responses. And your answers to those questions can help inform the strategic plan. So in this portion of the meeting, will be posing the questions and inviting you to respond to them again through the written Q&A. So this time, use the written Q&A not to share your questions, although we welcome more of them, but to actually answer the questions that we're going to walk you through in a moment. And again, for those who've joined us in progress, and I apologize if I'm being repetitive for others, to use the written Q&A, you open the Q&A window. You do that by clicking on the icon at the bottom of the screen. You may have to hover your cursor over it to highlight it. Once you've opened the window, you type your question or your comment or answer to the question that's being posed. And then please be sure to reference the question number. And I'll take you through the questions in a moment. And again, your question, your comment, your answer to the question may be shared live by us. So you see the first question on screen right now. So if you were answering that one, be sure when you're using the written Q&A to put Q1 in, and then we'll know that your answer relates to this question. So the first one is in terms of what's happening in the County of Brant. And again, that can be the geographic area. It can be within the organization or the corporation itself. What's going well? What are the strengths and successes on which to build going forward? As I think many of you know, a strategic plan isn't just about addressing problems and filling gaps and addressing things that bug us. It's also about building on strength and harnessing that strength to be even better. So if you'd be so kind as to share some of your responses to that question, that would be terrific. And I'm going to invite our manager to move to the next slide, because I'd like to show you the first two or three so that you can be responding to any of them. So you've seen the first one. The second one and the third one are on screen now. So the second one is, what do we think we know, or what do we know that needs to influence the new strategic plan? What's changing? What has changed in the county or elsewhere? So for example, you might say, we know that we have an aging population. We know that we have experienced significant growth in the county. These are all important things that we need to be thinking about. We know that, we're coming out of a pandemic, and, what are the implications of that for the future? So feel free to share again your responses to that question, and if you would reference those answers by putting Q2 in front of your response. And the third one is, what are county-related itches? So by that, we mean what's less than optimal? What are some of those gaps in services or amenities? What are some of the unrealized opportunities? What are some of the things that aren't as good as you feel they could be? So if you would take a moment to respond to any of those first three questions, that would be terrific. And while you're doing that, I'm going to invite Daryl and the team from the county to respond to some of the questions that have come in. Daryl, someone was wondering how you will be looking to protect farmland and agricultural areas, and the degree to which that will be part of what you're doing in the strategic plan. Daryl, do you want to jump in and share some thoughts on that one?
Certainly, Glenn, and I appreciate the question. I think that, kind of falling below the kind of strategic plan, there are a number of other, significant supporting plans, and in this case, the official plan, zoning bylaw of the municipality, and the county is in a position very soon to be moving forward with approval of an updated official plan for the county, which certainly recognizes and prioritizes the preservation of farmland. So I think it's top of mind for this council. I think it's going to be self-evident in the development of our new official plan, which is going to be coming before this council early in the spring.
Okay, thank you. And there's another question. I'm jumping around a little bit here, but somebody has asked, what steps will you be taking to implement and measure your decision to declare Brant a climate emergency? And Adam, maybe you're better positioned to jump in on that one. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Glenn. Thanks. Yeah, so I just wanted to let the attendees know that we anticipate having some measure of climate mitigation strategy coming towards the late summer, early fall of this year. We focused on our energy management and conservation demand plan, which has been a little more difficult to see some results from based off the provincial government directions the past few, 3 or 4 years. I know in speaking with representatives from our municipal corporation that has a renewable energy department, that we have a lot of good steps that I think we can take in terms of trying to mitigate the carbon that the county does produce. It is difficult. I mean, some of the largest producers that we have are our wastewater facilities, our recreation facilities, and the uses that they have are primarily natural gas. We have eliminated a lot of our carbon emissions from electricity. And with the renewable energy that we produce, say, for example, on the Brant Sports Complex, we have mitigated a lot of that. So, but there's larger aspects to this and a more of a community focus to it as opposed to a corporate focus, which traditionally the other plans and programs have. So just look for that sometime toward the end of mid to the end of 2023.
Great, thanks, Adam. And Daryl, I'm going to come back to you for this one. Somebody is saying, given that this is an update to the current strategic plan for the county, are you envisioning that the new plan will be a lot different from the one currently in place? Or do you see it more as an iteration of the last one?
Thanks. Great. That's a great question. I think there will be some common themes that will kind of transfer from one plan to the next, but certainly things change quickly. And this municipality is growing quickly. We're just coming out of an extended pandemic period of time. So I think things have changed to some degree. I think, again, it will be in many ways, this is a refresh or an update of the strategic plan, but I think there will be common themes, but I expect there's going to be because some renewed emphasis on some new priorities. It could be on the transportation side, on the green energy conservation side as well. So I think I think it's a bit of both. And I think you're going to see some common themes that kind of transfer over. But what we're really hoping to tap into with this, this public engagement piece is what's changed, what has really changed in the last 4 years that our council really needs to be aware of.
Gotcha. Thank you. And you mentioned transportation. There's a question around how the strategic plan links to other key plans for the county, such as the official plan, the transportation master plan. And in fact, someone more specifically, and I don't know if you can answer this tonight, I imagine you can't, because it's more a transportation master plan question, but somebody has asked whether we can expect to get regular public transportation from Paris or Brant County to Brantford and so forth with reliable scheduled bus service. So how does the strategic plan link to those other initiatives like the OP, the transportation master plan? And again, are you able to share anything about the public transit this evening?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Glenn. So certainly the, once the strategic plan is in place or the update to the plan and there's a clear vision, some guidelines, a blueprint for council, then things start to fit in underneath of that. And as far as the transportation master plan goes, that's due to return to council. That's been out, a draft has been kind of through a consultation period now. So that will follow in closely behind the approval of the updated strategic plan. So one gets to, it will kind of hopefully represent the things, kind of the same themes or issues that come to bear in the strategic plan. I guess at a more operational or tactical level, it's hard to indicate right now in terms of that kind of a fixed transportation route or an expansion of the current public transportation system we have. I know that anecdotally that is a priority. A number of councillors have mentioned that. As staff, we see it as a priority. So, early days in this term, but I would not be surprised to see some significant developments in the kind of the regional transportation piece here.
Great, thank you. And I know a number of participants tonight have shared comments around being really appreciative of the opportunity to be part of these kinds of sessions and to share their views. So we say thank you for that, and thank you again for participating. Adam, I'm going to invite you in one more question. I think you're probably best for this one, and it's around the engagement side of it. Somebody's wondering, how can the public continue to be engaged in this process going forward? Again, I know there's a meeting coming up on March 6th. I know you've got a survey, but can you tell us a little more about those just to make people aware of them?
Yeah, certainly. So obviously last night we had an open house scheduled from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. that we rescheduled due to the inclement weather. So we'll have a session on Monday, March the 6th. From 6 to 8 p.m. in the same place, the Lafarge Hall, the Brant Sports Complex. We have about 7 stations set up where you can engage with county staff, and we had, again, as the mayor said, several members of our council there to discuss the ideas that we're talking about tonight. So those are great opportunities for county staff to hear your perspective, for your councillors to hear your perspective as this plan is brought forward to them, particularly in a draft format. All of our council meetings are open and available to the public. Agendas are available on our website. We'll share an update once we have a draft strategic plan, and I believe anyone who's signed up to be informed of anything new on that will receive an alert and certainly provide comments on the draft plan that will be presented to council.
Great, thank you.
And I guess finally, the survey will be open till March the 6th. We've extended it due to the rescheduling of the final process. So we have about another week for the public to engage with us.
Terrific, thank you. And if you wouldn't mind, Adam, going back one slide, let's put question 1 back up, because we're getting some responses. And again, I thank you all for doing that. We're a small group, but a group that's obviously very engaged. So we appreciate you sending your answers to the questions. Let me share a few of them now. So we're asking what's happening in the county of Brant or within the corporation that's going well. What are some of the strengths, the successes? There've been a number of comments about natural heritage. So things like trails and parks and paths and outdoor spaces, and the fact that those are, working well for people and that people are very appreciative of them, and the job that the county's doing at maintenance and so forth. So thank you for sharing that. Also some comments about places specifically. And again, I'm not trying to name them all tonight. Be reassured that we have everything you're sending us through the written Q&A, but some people have talked about Paris and St. George as destinations in particular that people are very excited about, that they want to visit, that they want to be a part of, and so forth. We've also had some comments around environmental planning and the fact that the county's declared a climate emergency, and the fact that better consultation and engagement is taking place. There have also been some comments around a good performance of the democratic process. And by that, the person has gone on to say that means elected officials and county staff are making efforts to involve residents, and certainly tonight is an indication of that. We also have some other comments here. One person has said the taxes are okay at this point. I think there's a little bit of a warning in there at this point, so you make sure that you keep things under control. There's also some comments about the kinds of events that have taken place in the county, whether it's concerts or other tourism related things as being successes and strengths on which to build. Some comments about camps and recreation programs. So that's all terrific. Again, I'm just selectively choosing things as we work our way through. For question 2, if we could go back to that slide just to remind everybody of what it was. So we were saying, what do we know or think we know that needs to influence the new strategic plan? And there's a comment about the county must know and appreciate the effects of rolling lockdowns of the past years on county residents and businesses and other institutions. And that's certainly been very real for a lot of people in different locations. And I know that the county certainly does, is appreciative of that. There are also some comments here about the importance of preserving green spaces, of preserving agriculture, of being aware that there's a lot of development taking place and needing to manage that in as professional and a polished manner as possible. There are comments about the pressure to develop on farmland, both from the province and within the county and so forth. There are some comments around, with the rapidly increasing population, the need for good, stable public transportation, the need for more recreational activities and amenities, parks, green parks, grounds for children to go out and play and so forth. There were other comments about, needing communities that are sort of complete. That is, they have, the businesses, the services that you need, but also the forests, the trails, the walkable space, all of those sorts of things. There are some comments about the increasing price of and the challenges around the affordability of homes and rentals and so forth, that residential units are high priced, that there are high house prices in Paris and other places. So we're seeing some of those kinds of responses coming in from you as well. And I'm just scanning to look at a few others here. The need for safe bike lanes has come in as something that's known. The need for physical barriers between bikes and the road, and having separated space and so forth. And then around question 3, what are county-related itches? Again, what's less than optimal? What's not perhaps working as well as it could? So I'm just scanning again to get a sense of what's being forwarded to me here. We have some that there could be more focus on bringing young people into the political process. That's interesting as a county itch. Thank you for sharing that. We have some others here about needing a firm stance on keeping urban boundaries intact. Others have said that we need some new roads or better roads and better planning to avoid traffic and congestion, in particular in the downtown Paris area. And someone else has said that that's a real challenge, in particular on the weekend. And for those of you, us who have visited there, we do know what that can be like. It's a very popular place, a lot of people visiting there. Again, more stuff around safe bike lanes with physical barriers, both in rural centers and in rural roadways and elsewhere, and the need for traffic calming. Other people have identified some problems around sprawl on farmland and bringing more traffic into the areas and making it less safe for people to walk or bike in those areas, and the need for enhanced ecological focus. Also some comments again about protecting farmland and natural heritage. There's certainly a theme that seems to be emerging this evening. So thank you for sharing those. Again, I haven't covered all of them, and I realize that. I know that people are typing sort of fast and furious, and we're just trying to give you a flavor of what we're seeing. So before I share 2 more questions, and they'll be our last sort of the ones that we're looking for you to respond to through the written Q&A. Just before I share those, let's take a moment to pause and do our last 2 polling questions for the evening, and we'll do them back to back. So this is question 3, which you caught a glimpse of earlier. We'll put it up now on screen for you. Do you feel safe and included in your community? And it's simple yes, no. So we'll give you a moment to respond to that. Thanks, everyone. Another 10 seconds or so. Again, really appreciate everybody participating. It makes for a more, I think, interesting evening for everyone to get a sense of where your heads are at on some of these issues. And again, we're small in number. None of this is considered statistically reliable. We're just trying to get a sense of what you're thinking. Okay, why don't we draw this one to a close? And some really good news here, I think, for everyone. All of you, everybody who's responded to this question is saying that they do feel safe and included in the community, which is wonderful to hear. And again, I wouldn't imagine that if we did this for the whole, if we did a reliable survey that we'd get 100%, but it's great to see tonight that many of you are feeling that way about this issue. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So let's put the fourth and final poll question up. If we could do that now, I'll ask our technical manager to share that one. Thank you. So this one is, do you feel that the County of Brant roads are safe to drive on? So again, a simple yes, no. Yeah, we'll give you another 10 seconds or so, everybody. Thank you. Okay, if we could draw that one to a close. So a little more variation here. Just over half of you, 60%, say yes, the roads are safe to drive on, but a significant number, 4 in 10, say no, they're not. So that's certainly something to take into account, and that needs to be considered as the development of the strategic plan continues. And thank you again, everybody, for participating in that part of the session. So we had, as I mentioned, 2 other questions that the team would like to get your answers to and your views on. And again, we'll invite you to do so by using the written Q&A function, just as you've been doing already. And many of you have been responding. And again, I'm so appreciative of that. Thank you. So the 2 questions, 4 and 5, first of all, 4 is, and if you would reference them again when you respond, if you're answering question 4, put Q4 at the beginning of your answer. On what issues, topics, or opportunities would you most like the new county strategic plan to focus, and what makes you say that? So that's, this is giving you the opportunity to say to council, to say to staff, this is the stuff that really matters to me. This is what I would like to see the county focusing on. And then the question 5 is what we call a STEM sentence, which will invite you to complete. And the beginning of the sentence is, to make the County of Brant an even better place to live, to work, to play. Wouldn't it be great if what? How would you fill that sentence in? How would you complete the sentence? So again, if you're answering either of those, be sure to reference the question number at the beginning so that we know which one it is that you were, looking to respond to. And we'll give you a minute or two. I'll be quiet. You probably heard more from me than you wanted to this evening. I'll be quiet for a moment and give you a chance to respond. And then we'll start to share a few of the items that are coming in live with all of you. Thank you. And Daryl, while we're doing that, there's a few other questions. We can take a moment maybe to pose some of those while people are answering the questions that the county has posed. Somebody was, and this could be for you or maybe for Adam, but somebody was interested in knowing how you track success against the goals in the strategic plan. Now, obviously, you don't have the new one set yet. You're in the midst of developing it. But what are some of the mechanisms that have been used in the past or that will be used going forward to actually figure out whether you're accomplishing some of the things that are in the strategic plan? Daryl or Adam, either of you, please jump in.
So certainly, thanks, Glenn. I'll maybe kick it off, and then maybe I will hand off to Adam at some point. But certainly, once the plan is established, staff are diligent in terms of kind of checking progress along the way and reporting into council on what markers have been achieved and making that available to the public. And I know Adam's a big part of how we share that information, but council does receive regular updates in terms of our progress and which strategic actions are being met or where there's slippage in terms of timing on some of those. But again, I know Adam has a direct role in that, so I may just hand off, Adam, if you don't mind.
Certainly, Daryl. Sort of naturally, I think the focus of county operations through 2020 and 2021 was ensuring business continuity, and strategic plan goals still were accomplished. It just wasn't as much of a focus as trying to ensure business continuity. So the end of 2021, we prepared a report card that outlined each of the specific actions, sort of broke them down into whether they're sort of an action with a beginning and an end point, or whether they're sort of continuing goals. And then we graded them as to whether they were completed, whether they were in progress but they were on target, or in progress but off target. And that kind of provides a good visual for council and for the community to see where exactly we stand. So I believe at last check, the vast majority were either completed or in progress, and either on target or off track. We had one that we sort of decided was completely deferred by the COVID-19 pandemic, which related to our official plan, which was also delayed by other factors too. So, there'll probably be a couple of things that will carry over that are important, like these secondary plans that are associated with our new official plan into the new plan. But that's primarily how we've done that. If you go to brant.ca and search for strategic plan, you can see sort of we'll call it a dashboard, a sort of a static dashboard that shows the current status of each of the specific actions, and then we'll be carrying forward a program very similar through this new strategic plan process.
Great, thank you. And Adam, Daryl, one more question, and then we'll start to share some of the responses that people have been providing to questions 4 and 5. But somebody's thinking way ahead here, and they're asking, are there any plans to do a kind of midterm check-in on the strategic plan? So maybe in a couple of years, look at it again and say, is it still relevant given what may have happened at the provincial level or elsewhere? And again, I know we're looking 2 years out here, but any thoughts about that as to whether there might be a little bit of a check-in?
Yeah, certainly, Glenn. Absolutely. I think that's kind of critical to the process. It's not only a kind of a check-in in terms of how are we doing or how are we measuring up against the plan, but are components of it still relevant? I mean, as you noted, things can change significantly over the term of council. So that certainly would be part of our process going forward, not only an update or a scorecard, but just a check-in around the framework itself. Is it still realistic? Are all these objectives still achievable? Do they still make sense?
Okay, thank you. Adam, anything to add?
No, I think Daryl covered that.
Okay, great. So let's start to share some of the responses that have been coming in. And I know we're starting to push up to 7 o'clock here. My hunches will probably go for another 15-20 minutes or so not keep people too long, and hopefully we will wrap up before 7:30 again to be respectful of your time. I will note, first of all, that at least one of you has shared a comment, and I completely get this, about the polling questions, that they did not allow, or the last two did not allow for much subtlety or nuance by simply asking yes or no. Do you feel safe? Do you not feel safe? Are the roads safe? Are they not safe? And there's certainly some gray areas in there. You might feel safe on some roads and not safe on others, or there may be some in the community who feel generally safe but not completely so. So we get that, and I think that's something that perhaps the county staff can take to heart for the future, the ability to provide you with a little more opportunity through either scaled questions or other means to provide some of that nuance and subtlety in the response. So thank you for sharing that. So let me get to some of the answers. So for question 4, on what issues, topics, or opportunities would you most like the strategic plan to focus? Not surprising, given what we heard earlier. We have a number of people who are talking about the protection of farmland and agricultural lands, stopping sprawl in that area, focusing on building compact communities within urban settlement boundaries, and not expanding the urban settlement boundary. We have others who are talking about the importance of protecting and expanding the trails and the natural areas and the green spaces that many of you identified earlier as being things that you value and that you believe are strengths within the community. We have others, again, who are talking about the existing farmland, the fact that, acreage that's lost is lost forever, and it's really important given, issues of food security and insecurity and so forth. Some are also talking about the need for more public institutions and businesses. This is an interesting one, to perform cross-promotion. And they've gone on to say that an example would be, for example, or is seeing the Paris Library promote the council chamber meeting. So getting different public institutions, businesses to cross-promote what's going on in society within the community. That would be something that people would like to see some focus on. A few others, people would like to see a focus on affordable or more attainable housing for seniors and young people in particular, while again continuing to preserve the green space and trying to minimize or eliminate the need for sprawl. Some have also talked about the need to focus on areas of new development, such as new roads, bridges, parks, grocery stores, other amenities, and so forth. And they've gone on to say as their rationale that the population has grown really quickly and rapidly in a short time span, and with a large number of housing projects in operation or on the way, there's a need to act quickly to make sure that that core infrastructure and other services and amenities are in place. Other people, again, are talking about the love for the trails, the river, the natural resources, and so forth. I'll share a few others with you. Some people are talking about wanting to create the opportunity for more leisure attractions, and whether that's golf courses or other things. Some people have said they would focus on supporting, local and growing local, so supporting businesses. Again, green spaces showing up. Doing things that are environmentally sensitive and that are respectful of the climate emergency, being sure to manage growth and control development in a positive or as positive a way as possible, and so forth. So those are just a few around question 4 to give you a flavor of what we're seeing. Let's turn our attention now to question 5. So again, we were asking you to complete this sentence to make the County of Brant an even better place to live, work, and play. Wouldn't it be great if what? And some people have said it would be great if the county were to invest more, or to continue to invest in green infrastructure, whether that's solar panels on new buildings or whatever it might be. And again, to, develop climate change, adaptation, resilience plans, and so forth. Again, a bunch of you are emphasizing, the focus on the remaining woodlands and the wetlands and the water courses and the wildlife habitats, and making sure that we maintain those, that we protect them, and so forth. Some of you are looking at it from an arts and culture point of view, and wouldn't it be great if we had more affordable venues for smaller or amateur productions of one kind or another? Some people have said if the attendance of council chamber meetings from the public were to increase, and specifically somebody has said by 10%, and maybe we can have more young professionals in attendance who might involve in some networking functions. We've had some people say, wouldn't it be great if all county residents felt like we have a common vision, that there is a sense that it's not all about Paris or St. George or Burford, that there really is a sort of united county vision that people get behind. Again, a lot of comments around protecting and expanding trails and natural areas. Some comments here about wouldn't it be great if we were more welcoming of migrant farm workers who allow us to produce the bountiful harvests that we have. Wouldn't it be great if we were more inclusive and had such things as community suppers or dinners that include migrant farm workers to make them feel welcome and appreciated? And if we could help rural seniors to age in place, and if the county also had funding for the protection of heritage buildings in rural areas, and if kids could safely bike to school, and if seniors and kids could safely walk or bike along rural roads. And some others here about, if the county could hold a council meeting in places other than council chambers. And, there were a few examples here of Langford Schoolhouse and so forth. So a variety of answers there. Wouldn't it be great if we could improve infrastructure? Wouldn't it be great if we supported small-scale ecological farms and helped them to enter the field? And wouldn't it be great if we supported ecotourism? Wouldn't it be great if we had at least one bank open outside of the downtown core? Traffic would be, much lower, from that initiative on its own. And again, there's a number of people who are just emphasizing the importance of heritage protection. That's coming through again, loud and clear. So that was wonderful, everybody. And I know some of you are still sending stuff in. We will, keep the meeting open for another 5 or 10 minutes. If you have more that you want to add, please continue to send it through the Q&A. We're happy to have a look at it post-meeting. But some terrific stuff there. And again, I'm very appreciative of you taking the time to do that. What I'd like to do now, just before we draw things to a close, is invite Daryl Lee. Again, he is, for those of you who've joined us in progress, he's the county's interim chief administrative officer. I'm going to invite Daryl to reiterate some of the next steps and perhaps share some of his summative observations about what's come in and some of the things that I've been mentioning on behalf of you, our valued participants. Daryl, over to you.
Great. So thank you very much, Glenn. Initial comment would be just in terms of the information we've received, and the comments are terrific. There's some really, really great information here, some points I know that council will want to consider. So kind of moving forward from here, we want to continue to gather as much public input as we can through this process. And there's still a couple opportunities to do that. Certainly Adam has referred to the March 6th kind of drop-in open house session that 6 to 8, that's at the Brant Sports Complex. So there's another opportunity. The survey will stay open. So just visiting the county's website, brant.ca, our future, and that's an easy, quick way to provide some input for us. So certainly this is all about casting the net as widely as we can right now, Glenn, in terms of gathering as much input as we can. Once we're able to kind of close off that kind of public input stage, we'll be working to kind of roll up all that information, all that data into a report that we can provide to council. And then our council gets an opportunity to weigh in on both their input, review the comments received, and then we start to distill it down to some common themes and really some specific actions we can carve out of that. So, Yeah, and from the input received tonight, there's, very clearly there's some common themes emerge around transportation and our, protection of our natural environment and additional public engagement opportunities. And so I think just a quick look at the input we've received tonight, you can start to see those themes emerge just from this session alone. So some really, really great information to build off of. And all the questions, all the information submitted here will be reviewed. So really, really appreciative of everybody who's participated and just how involved they've been tonight. So it's going to be very helpful to kind of build our process from here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daryl. So just a couple of other quick questions before we let people go. And these, I think, are pretty straightforward. And I think I know the answer to this one, but I'll let you answer it, Daryl, because you're with the county, I'm not. Somebody has asked, will the strategic plan take into account the differences between the urban and rural areas within the county and not just be focused on the more populated